against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful.
I got a joke for you. Somebody asked me last week to crack a joke. It's been lacking in that area, so I made up a joke. I'm going to try. How do you unlock a bird cage? With a turkey. Good thing I got. I thought it was pretty good. All right, it's our second week as my happy Thanksgiving moment. We're moving on from that. James chapter 5, 9 through 11, be steadfast. In other words, stop grumbling. All right, so here's where we're going to end up today. I'm going to conclude that grumbling is praying that's misplaced. It's a big leap. You're here, give it your all. I spent a lot of time studying this week, but more important, God has you here for a reason. Grumbling is misplaced prayer, where we're going to end up. It was Taco Bell. That's not Taco Bell because there's no royalty-free pictures for Taco Bell. But I was at Taco Bell 3 years ago, and I walked in and just Taco Bell down the street, Lake Washington area, to order my bean burrito, no onion, extra cheese on it. And I walk in there, and this lady, Katisha, is behind the front counter, and she takes my order, very bubbly lady, about my age, and I order. And I noticed whispering in the back of the room. Now, it wasn't normal whispering because the young ladies back there were pointing at me as they were whispering. So goes life. Pretend I don't hear anything, just finish my order, and one of the young ladies runs up to the counter and says, "You know who you look like?" I said, "No." I said, "Why don't you tell me?" She said, "Adam Levine." I don't know who the guy was. I know now. I know. He goes, "Yeah, man, you look just like Adam Levine." That moment my life changed because every old man and woman at Walmart and everybody else I encountered decided to tell me the exact same thing. Either way, so I go back to Taco Bell just a couple days later. The old man, 106 years old, he said the key to life is eat Taco Bell every day. He said that, and Taco Bell threw him a big old party. He might have croaked shortly after that. But regardless, I went back to get my bean burrito, no onion, extra cheese. Katisha was there, and they started singing Adam Levine songs to me. It was just very awkward. Everybody at Taco Bell, I am the spotlight. And, I mean, all of Taco Bell workers are busting out Adam Levine songs. And this has continued on. My desire for bean burritos and not drive far overruled the awkwardness of the situation. Well, either way, so this lady, Katisha, and her mom worked at the same Taco Bell. They managed it. Katisha, one day I brought my daughter in, Anna, and she met Katisha, and the two of them just fell in love. Just incredible. After she orders her 3 cheese roll-ups, every time we left Taco Bell, she said, "I want to go hug Katisha goodbye." And so she would run behind the counter and hug Katisha. And we take off, come back, and this continued, right? So, Anna eventually got anything she wanted from Taco Bell. She'd walk in there and she owned the place, and they're singing Adam Levine songs in the background. So one day, Anna, as a 4-year-old, mentioned her 5th birthday coming up to Katisha, and Katisha took note. And we come back to Taco Bell shortly after her birthday, and Katisha, now mind her, she's working Taco Bell. She's told me a little bit about her life. She worked 2 jobs to provide for her family, her children. We come to Taco Bell, and she has a stack of gifts for my daughter. She spent more money on my daughter than I did. And these gifts, they kept coming. And there we are in the middle of Taco Bell listening to Adam Levine and opening gifts and eating bean burritos. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And this has carried on for a couple years, and then this summer something changed. I go in after church, do my bean burrito, no onion, extra cheese. It took 45 minutes to get the bean burrito. But there was a totally different crew. People I've never recognized before. In fact, chaos ensued. The manager literally, we were in there, she shuts the door, the lobby, locks it down, and she basically says, I can't take anymore. We all are in there, we don't have food, and chaos in Taco Bell. Either way, I leave Taco Bell, what do you do? I call my wife. We're never going back to that Taco Bell. They can't get a bean burrito together in less than 5 minutes. Well, I was there the next day. I'd give it another shot. An hour to get a bean burrito, no onion, with extra cheese. I gave up. Forget it. These people are lunatics. They can't figure out how to make a bean burrito. You know what James says? Chapter 1, verse 2. Count it all joy, brothers, sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. Now look at a bean burrito is not really a big deal, right? But the trials of various kinds come in many forms. Last week we talked about being patient. Patience is withholding wrath and delaying wrath. And patience is a doorway into mercy. To be patient. That's what James says. Be patient. Who's he talking to? Let's remember who James is talking to real quick. All right? James is talking to the loan guy. Back up in James chapter 5, we'll read this. He's talking to the loan guy who did not get paid. James 5, 1 through 6. James talks to the rich and says, you do not pay your loan guy, the man who mows your fields, what he is owed. So James turns his attention and talks to the victim here. The person who has experienced wrong in their life. All right, these principles apply to you. I'm sure you've been through it. I'm sure you've been deceived at some point. You've been lied to. You've been stolen from. You've been fill in the blank. We're humans. And we've all been the brunt of somebody else's wrongdoings or their jokes, whatever it may be. The situation here is a loan guy who did not get paid. He was ripped off by a rich guy. Put yourself in the situation. The rich guy, I am sure, believed that loan guy didn't owe him money. I'm sure the rich guy believed he didn't owe that guy money because that guy, I don't know, cut his grass wrong. You can read it. You're like, no, there's no loan guys in Scripture. Just go back and read James chapter 5, 1 through 6. You'll catch up. I'm sure this rich guy has good reasons why he's not doing what he's doing. I'm sure he's accused the loan guy of doing something. So here we are. James says, be patient if someone has wronged you. Patience is the doorway to mercy. Let me remind you what mercy isn't. This is the definition that has floated around in the churches. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. That's tolerance. Mercy is not withholding wrath. Back up 7, 8 months, there was a whole message on mercy, and I unpacked this. I gave you a new definition, and it's not a definition that I just came up with. It's a definition where I tracked the word mercy through its original use and came to realize mercy is so much more. Mercy is compassion aroused when you see the pain of someone else. You have a merciful God. What pain did he see? Well, go to the cross And what does Jesus see as he looks down in his pain and suffering? He sees men and he sees women who do not know what they're doing. You go to the pit where Stephen is getting stoned, and what does he see in his pain and suffering? He sees men who do not understand, they do not know, they don't understand what they're doing. He sees ignorance. This is the affliction that mercy addresses. Not simply pain that we feel in the physical flesh, not simply the pain of poverty. It's the pain of understanding we all as humans are trapped in an existence, in a body of corruption. Pain is knowing that the person sitting next to you is looking for life. And they may strike out by deceiving you, by withholding money, by lying to you, by stealing, by calling you names, by ostracizing you at the Thanksgiving dinner. Pain is understanding we all are in search for life. And that oftentimes comes out in harm against each other. This is what mercy addresses, church. Mercy addresses the affliction that is caused by sin, being separated from God. Patience is the doorway into mercy. Think about every situation you need patience. The Uber driver is late and you're starting to get aggravated and you want to let him know a piece of your mind. The Taco Bell situation, right? The bean burrito that should have arrived 40 minutes ago. The kids that are screaming, the parent who doesn't understand, right? So we are withholding and delaying wrath. In other words, I will bear with you. I will tolerate your existence. Mercy goes the next step. Says, no, I'm not going to just tolerate you. I'm going to engage you, even though you're causing me harm. I am going to engage you in love and compassion, even though I may get wounded in the end. I mean, that's the story of the cross. That's the gospel there. Even while we were sinners, he died for us. So James 5, 9 through 11, do not grumble against one another. Do not grumble against one another. He's telling you, the person who's been wronged, that, guys, this applies to you. Do not grumble against one another so that you may not be judged. This, I have to take time to unwind this. And I know time is limited, but this is important because James has been labeled as like the Proverbs of the New Testament. And we see James is so rich with the gospel. What does it mean so that you may not be judged? I want you to think about a moment where you grumbled in life. Or you heard somebody grumbling against you. What is that person going through? What are you going through? I'll tell you something. Everybody that I've heard grumble, and myself included, are in a place in life that they're under burden. They're going through something. They're feeling some sort of affliction. They're going through some sort of pain. When somebody's grumbling, somebody's complaining, somebody who's whining, it's a signal that something isn't right. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 32. But when you are judged by the Lord, you are disciplined so that you may not be condemned along with the world. What does that say? Well, see, when we think of judgment, we always think of end times, right? Something that's looming out there. But could your judgment not be here and now? Could your judgment not be here to address the issue in the life you're living in now? Could it not be self-judgment? Could it not be self-discipline? So the person who grumbles is under a weight. And that weight is designed by the Lord to draw you back to Him. When you are judged by the Lord, you are disciplined, so you may not be condemned along with the world. So when you grumble, you are falling under self-condemnation, self-judgment. And that burden, that weight of just life in general, you live under it. And it's designed. And so this morning, I'm hoping to put a trigger in your mind that when we are finding ourselves grumbling, something we all do, that we are recognizing within us that something's not right. We need to come back to the Lord. James 5:9 again. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. Now, I'm going to offer an interpretation on this. But before I do, I want to give you a balanced view. Every commentary I read on this issued this interpretation. The judge is standing at the door, ready to judge you for grumbling. Okay, so I'm going to offer that to you before I go into mine, so you have the best tools in order for you to interpret this. Okay? Because I don't see that interpretation, but my feeling is that's your gut interpretation to this. That judge is standing at the door to judge you. Just a couple questions that I asked myself. Does this fit James? I don't feel like that interpretation fits James. Does it fit the context? And to me, it doesn't. But let's talk about grumble real quick. What does it mean to grumble? Grumble in the Greek, at its core, means to sigh, to murmur, and to groan. Right? When we think of grumbling, we think of the words that come out of our mouths, and you can't limit it to that. That's a result of something going on within. Those words are simply a symptom of an inner disposition, which is murmuring, groaning, a sigh, right? Something is off. You've been stolen from. Somebody owes you money in the James context and won't pay you. Somebody cheated you. Somebody walked out on you. And your body just groans. This isn't right. Here's a question for you. What do you try to accomplish when you grumble? I know grumbling, man, has this elementary feel to it. But there's so much more to this word than just right? It's this disposition that your body's letting the world know I'm not right. And what are we trying to accomplish? What do you think that we're trying to accomplish when we grumble? I'm not fishing for a right or wrong answer, but I'm curious what you think. To let off steam. Okay, so you're venting. You're just releasing. Okay. Justification for your feelings. That argument that we make up in our mind, right? We have in the shower against the person who wronged us. And we always win, but we're always prepping for that argument that never comes. We're trying to justify ourselves. I think that's crucial to interpreting this. Why else would we grumble? Apparently that resonates. Why else do we grumble? I mean, I think the two of you kind of nailed it, right? One, you are releasing this built up, pent up frustration. The second is you want to prove you're right. Somebody accused you of doing wrong and they're not paying you. Somebody has laid out an accusation against you and you know they are dead wrong. So we grumble. With that in mind, why do you think James says the judge is standing at the door? Think about this, all right? Why do you think James says the judge is standing at the door. Do not grumble lest you be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Okay? It's a tricky question. My mind wants to jump instinctively to he's waiting to judge me, the one who's been wronged. Anyone here, that's your gut initial interpretation of this? The judge is standing at the, lest you be judged. Can you flip it back to verse 9? So that you may not be judged. So that, do not grumble, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. I mean, it's kind of laid out in a way that would say he's waiting to judge you. Now, go back to that side. So why do you think he's standing at the door? What is James driving at? See, I want to push you to buck at sometimes your instinctive interpretation, which could be driven by our Western culture and some bad teaching we've had in the church. Let's go to the context. You know the answer. Once again, it's my interpretation. I've laid out the other interpretations. I think I'm right. I mean, or else I wouldn't be saying it. But behold the wages of, here's the context. Just back up 5 verses. Behold the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You could substitute the Lord of hosts for the judge. The cries of the harvesters, those who have been wronged, have reached the ears of the judge. So why does he say the judge standing at the door? Let's just paint this picture. You're in a courtroom, and it's one of these Judge Judy cases, right? I mean, you've been wronged, $75. The guy there, he said, well, he didn't cut half my yard. And you're saying, I cut it all. I've got the pictures. And the judge hears the case, and he recesses for 10 minutes. He walks out the door. He's heard the case. He's made up his mind. He knows who's right and who's wrong. And he comes back, and he's standing at the door. Why is he standing at the door? He's got a verdict. He is the one who's heard your cries. The judge, there is a situation here where 2 people are going at it, and the judge has made a verdict. He has declared somebody righteous. So don't grumble, because the judge might be on your side. What James is saying is, when you grumble, you're becoming just like the rich man. You're attacking now the rich man. Don't become like him. The judge is there standing with a verdict. He's heard it all. He's gathered all the evidence. He knows who's righteous and who's not. So he goes on, as an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. So did the Lord stand there, the judge, waiting to judge Job? His compassion and mercy was aroused. When we grumble, we essentially are praying to the wrong person. Some of you may find that you grumble without ceasing. The body aches and aches and aches and groans and groans and groans and murmurs and murmurs and murmurs, and you just find yourself complaining through life. And Paul says to pray without ceasing. Here's my hope. We can catch ourselves in our grumbling and use that as a trigger to be praying. Because when we grumble, we are simply, as Gene pointed out, pointing there's something not right in my life. But grumbling against a brother to ourselves or to someone else, what value is that? Why not bring it to the Lord? Now I want to build this argument from Paul. You're going to feel like he's commentating on what James has already said. But Romans 8:18 through 39, I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worth grumbling about. Essentially is what he's saying. And they're not worth comparing to the glory that's going to be revealed to you. The creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Now watch this progression. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together in pains of childbirth until now. And not only creation, but we ourselves, you who have the first fruit of the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, groan inwardly. And see, grumbling is the corrupted side of this groaning. You groan inwardly as you wait eagerly the adoptions as sons, the redemption of your bodies. In hope you were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope. You don't hope in getting that payment. You don't hope in that wrongdoer somehow correcting. That's not hope. It all vanishes one day. Who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience, holding back the wrath we want to see others feel. But likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. You do not know what to pray for. You just groan. You grumble. You don't know what to pray for as you ought. The Spirit, though, is interceding with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for you according to the will of God. And now the master plan on your life. This is God's purpose in it all. And don't miss this. Because you grumble because you want to be justified. You grumble because you want to be proven right. You grumble in hopes to escape the pain. But we know that it's all for your good. All things work together for your good, to those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he predestined. Those whom he predestined you to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that you might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. Those whom he called, he what? The judge made them right. The judge is standing at the door with this verdict. No, that's my son. That's my daughter. They're righteous. I don't see him standing at the door to condemn you, to tally up your wrongdoings for one day. I see him standing at the door to redeem you and tell you, I declare you righteous. And by the way, his mercy could also be for the rich guy. Those whom he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say to these things? If God's for us, nobody stands against you. Nobody stands to accuse you. Okay, maybe you did only cut half the backyard. Maybe you did deserve the accusations, but in the divine family, you stand righteous and forgiven. He who did not spare his own son gave him up for you. How will he not willingly, graciously give you all things? Who should bring any charge against you in the courtroom of God? God justifies. No one else. Who is to condemn? Christ Jesus is the one who died. He was the one who bore your condemnation. More than that, he was raised. He's now at the right hand of God. He's indeed interceding for you. Who shall separate you from the love of Christ? Who's going to separate you from the love of Christ? Because when I grumble, I'm trying not to just justify myself in front of people. I'm trying to justify myself in front of God. To tell him, I do earn your love. I deserve it. But no one's going to separate you from that love. Tribulation, distress, persecution, famine, nakedness, danger, sword. No, as it's written, I believe in Isaiah, for your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to the slaughter. We'll have to tweak this PowerPoint. For your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to the slaughter. No, in all these things you are more than conquerors through him who loved us. I am sure. Are you? Neither death nor life, angels, rulers, things present nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth. I know it's a lot of scripture. But this is what your life is built upon. You know, you got 6 days before coming back here again, Lord willing, to receive more of the promises of the gospel. And I got a feeling during that time period, somebody's going to accuse you. Right or wrong, you're going to have to deal with it. Grumbling, there's no value in it. Maybe the only value you could find is it's your trigger to pray. Pray for yourself. Pray for the one who's causing you harm. You both are stuck in affliction. And the Lord is redeeming you, and Lord willing, the other person. So I go back to Taco Bell, and it's just a couple days ago. And the crew was back. I mean, it was the crew that I knew, the crew that could make bean burritos in less than 5 minutes. It was the Adam Levine crew. I didn't actually recognize, it's been a while since I've seen them all, and but I heard from the background, Adam Levine is here. I said, all right, man, life is normal again. And sure enough, they come up and, it's Adam Levine, this, that, and the other. And Katisha's mom walked up and said, Adam Levine. 3 years of talking, I don't know her name. She doesn't know my real name. It's probably better that way. She said, Adam Levine, man, how are you? And I said, I'm awesome. How are you? And she smiled. She said, I'm really good. And I said, how's Katisha? She goes, oh, she passed away. And just stopped shooting tracks. See, me and my daughter visited her in the hospital about 8 months ago. And we don't know what she was going through or whatnot. She seemed healthy. She seemed like she was getting out of there and going back to work. And here I am at the counter, and you're kind of just godsmacked with this news. I said, I'm so sorry. Hey, you don't, just leave it at that. Take my tray, go walk to my table, sit down, and think about life. Thinking about grumbling about Taco Bell employees who are possibly filling a void because one of their coworkers was going through a lot. And it made me just stop and rethink about the whole situation. You don't know what's going on in the lives of the people next to you. Those that accuse you and those that do you wrong. You may be a spouse, you may be a child, you may be a parent, but you can't fully understand the pain that people experience day in and day out. Some of you won't talk about it. It's just not your nature. And I think, okay, that's fine. But I think we can all start at a place of understanding we all struggle with the same thing. We long to be loved. We long to be cherished. We long for significance and purpose. We long to be right. You long not to be accused, but for someone to truly step into your world and say, I get it. But what James is saying, though, when you're attacked by someone, what is the first thing we do? Self-preserve. And that wasn't Jesus' instinct. He went to the cross. Okay, so we're a church of what? 20, 30 right now. It only took Jesus and 11 guys to turn a world upside down. You see, because you get it. You're not sitting here without purpose. Let's get beyond grumbling into something so much greater. There's desperation all around. And let's not run on the assumptions that we're the only ones suffering. But if you can know that the judge has your back, you may be able to walk over that rich man and say, I forgive you. There's so much more to this life than what meets the eye. I'm on the phone last night with my brother, and we live about 1/10 of a mile from the interstate. And where we live, there's an overpass over Lake Washington. And I'm out there, I walk my pond as I talk on the phone, and all of a sudden I heard a yell. And then the first car hit. And then the second car. And for about a minute, the cars just kept colliding. And so I ran down under the overpass to see, who knows what I'm going to see. And cars are on their sides, and you can smell the smoke and whatnot, and you could just see the frantic people just running around. And eventually the officers showed up, and, is everyone okay? And they said it appears to be so. But they're looking for people in the ditches that are over, maybe thrown out of the car with the overpass. And my thought went, families are going to walk through tragedy now. Some people may never know. You just don't know. The people you're grumbling against, the amount of pain that they may be walking through. Yeah, you received an arrow in the back. Maybe it was their best attempt to fix their issues in life. You're crucified with Christ. You suffer with Him. Not just to put yourself to death, to live in your new life, but because of others, because of the hope that is found inside of you. That needs to be shared and displayed. And unfortunately, the best stage for that is when you suffer at the hands of sinners. It's not easy, but Christ did it because of love. We can do it also. Let me pray for you.